The internet completely shattered how we consume media. Gone are the days of immovable cable boxes and rigid scheduled programming. Today, you watch whatever you want, right from the cloud. But this massive industry disruption, it actually traces back to a single moment of absolute, downright frustration. Picture this, it's 1997 and Reed Hastings has a problem. He totally forgot to return his rented VHS copy of the movie Apollo 13 to the local video store, and bam, he's slapped with a $40 late fee. He was so incredibly embarrassed by this totally avoidable penalty that he actually hid it from his wife. But that $40 fine didn't just cause a minor marital secret. No, it inadvertently sparked the total destruction of the brick-and-mortar video industry. So how exactly did a minor annoyance destroy an entire massive industry? Well, that's exactly what this explainer is going to map out. We're tracing Hastings' journey from that painful little personal moment right up to his vision for an entirely new system of film rental. A system built from the ground up so you would never, ever have to pay a late fee again. Let's dive right into how this whole thing went down. Section 1. The $40 Catalyst. To really grasp how Netflix pulled this off, we kind of have to look at who Reed Hastings was. He wasn't your typical Silicon Valley suit. Actually, he was an unusual tech entrepreneur from Minnesota who'd spent time in Swaziland with the Peace Corps, teaching math. But after coming back to the US and grabbing a master's in computer science, he founded Pure Software in 1991. They built debugging tools for Unix systems and absolutely exploded, doubling revenue every single year. Fast forward to 1996, and it sells for $700 million. So suddenly, the former math teacher is a multimillionaire. He's got a ton of capital, absolutely zero fear of taking risks, and the confidence to partner up with a friend in August of 1997 to start a brand new movie rental service out in Scotts Valley, California. Section 2. Betting on the DVD. When Netflix was first formed, the whole idea was built on mailing DVDs to customers. But here's the crazy part. In 1997, the DVD player was brand new to the US market. A single player cost over $1,000, and less than 1% of Americans actually owned one. Hastings was gambling literally everything on this incredibly expensive new tech, eventually replacing the super popular but lower resolution VHS tape. At the time, it seemed like an absolutely insane bet. But Hastings, he saw a logistical goldmine here. See, the VHS tape was super bulky and really expensive to ship. The DVD, though, light and thin. But they had to be absolutely sure the math worked out. So Hastings tested over 200 different mailing packages. He literally mailed themselves just to figure out that a DVD could safely ship across the country for the cost of a single first-class stamp. This was the massive breakthrough. It meant they could just toss in a stamped return mailer and make renting a movie as convenient as checking your mailbox. So, on April 14th, 1998, they pulled the trigger. Netflix launched with just 30 employees and an inventory of 925 titles. For $4 plus a $2 shipping fee, you got a 7-day rental. And man, the demand was instantaneous. Within 40 hours of going live, they were hit with so much traffic they had to frantically upgrade their website's bandwidth. To push DVD adoption even faster, they brilliantly struck these promo deals with Toshiba, Hewlett-Packard, and Sony. Basically, they offered free rentals to anyone buying a new DVD player. Genius, right? Then, in 1999, they scored a cool $30 million investment from Group Arnaut. This cash allowed them to pivot to the thing that truly made them a powerhouse, the subscription model. They called it the Marquee Program. For roughly $16 a month, customers could rent unlimited DVDs, keeping up to 4 at a time. And the absolutely crucial point here, 0 due dates, 0 late fees. Hastings had officially and permanently solved his Apollo 13 problem. Section 3. David meets Goliath. Let's jump to the year 2000, where this turns into the ultimate underdog battle. Blockbuster was sitting on a massive mountain, 60,000 employees, 8,000 stores, and $4.5 billion in revenue. Netflix, meanwhile, was scraping by. They were doing 10,000 daily orders with $5 million in revenue and bleeding cash, like reporting a massive $57 million net loss. Knowing they couldn't bleed forever, Netflix actually went to Blockbuster and pitched becoming their online arm, Blockbuster.com. And how did the giant respond? They literally laughed Hastings and his team out of the boardroom. They were absolutely certain Netflix would crumble. Instead, Blockbuster went on to partner with Enron Broadband. Yeah, that Enron. Things looked incredibly grim for the young startup. but Hastings knew he just had to survive until the hardware caught up to his vision. And in 2001, the tides finally turned. First off, DVD players suddenly plummeted in price to under $100. Also in 2001, the tragic 9/11 attacks happened, which resulted in a lot of fearful Americans staying home, seeking out escapist entertainment. Because of this, Netflix subscriptions just absolutely skyrocketed. By 2002, they went public just to keep the lights on, and by 2003, they hit 1 million subscribers and posted their very first profitable year. The hardware had finally caught up. But hey, the giant wasn't quite dead yet. In 2004, Blockbuster finally woke up and launched their own online DVD mail service. And soon after, even Walmart entered the ring. This triggered a totally brutal three-way price war. Hastings bluntly stated on an earnings call, "Blockbuster has thrown everything but the kitchen sink at us." And in a wildly petty corporate move, Blockbuster's CEO actually heard that quote and literally had a physical kitchen sink delivered to the Netflix office. No way, right? It was open war. This war of attrition was fierce. Netflix just kept undercutting its rivals, watching its brief profitability completely evaporate and its stock plummet by 75%. But they just kept growing, eventually shipping 1 million DVDs a day by 2005. And that relentless pressure finally worked. In 2005, Walmart threw in the towel and quit the rental war. Blockbuster bled out over the next few years. In 2008, the very CEO who laughed Netflix out of the boardroom was fired. And by 2010, Blockbuster filed for bankruptcy. The brick-and-mortar era had completely collapsed, and Netflix had survived the bloodbath. Section 4. The Streaming Endgame. Now, in 2007, Netflix celebrated a massive milestone, the delivery of its billionth DVD. That's a billion with a B. And what did they do to celebrate? Hastings immediately introduced a feature that would begin making his own successful mailing business completely obsolete. Yep, video on demand. Initially, it was just a free add-on to the DVD subscription, and frankly, because movie rights were so incredibly hard to get, the quality and selection were pretty awful. But Hastings was looking 10 steps ahead. The true turning point for this new streaming model was a total masterstroke in 2008. Netflix signed a deal with the premium cable outlet Starz, dropping $20 million for access to massive Disney and Sony movie libraries. Now, $20 million might sound like a ton of cash, but it was an absolute bargain. Why? Because literally no one else was doing streaming at this scale. They were the only big player in town, allowing them to scoop up digital rights for pennies on the dollar and sign big follow-up deals with Paramount, MGM, and Lionsgate. And then came the aggressive hardware takeover. Hastings knew people didn't just want to watch movies huddled around small computer monitors. So Netflix buddied up with almost everyone. They aggressively integrated their software into Apple devices, PlayStations, Xboxes, Nintendo Wiis, you name it. By putting themselves on every major entertainment system on the planet, they became completely ubiquitous. Get this, by 2010, nearly 30% of all North American broadband traffic during peak hours was just people streaming Netflix. Of course, the journey wasn't totally flawless. In October 2011, they tried to split the DVD and streaming businesses. They spun off the DVD side into a terribly branded, pretty sloppy new service called Quickster, spelled with a W, by the way. The public reaction was absolutely nuclear. In a single month, Netflix lost 800,000 subscribers, and their stock tanked by 66%. It was a massive, massive stumble, serving as a really harsh warning about moving way too fast. But, to their credit, they realized the error, shutting Quickster down and reversing the whole decision in just 1 month to stop the bleeding. Section 5. The Algorithm Advantage. You know, algorithms have actually been a hallmark of Netflix from the very beginning, automatically suggesting new movies based on your rental history. But as they shifted heavily into streaming, this algorithm evolved into a seriously powerful digital matchmaker. It wasn't just suggesting what to watch next anymore. It was tracking viewing habits on a microscopic level to spot gaps in TV genres. They weren't just predicting what audiences wanted to watch. They were predicting what audiences wanted before the audiences even knew they wanted it. And this raw data, it started dictating billion-dollar production decisions. Because content streaming licenses were getting incredibly expensive as competitors finally woke up to the threat, Netflix used all that data to jump right into producing their own original content. And man, they made a splash. In 2011, they outbid HBO, putting down a cool $100 million upfront for a political drama called House of Cards, which aired in 2013. But the real revolution wasn't the show itself. It was the delivery. Netflix dropped the entire first season all at once. They weaponized their own suggestion algorithms to keep viewers glued to the screen. Why does this matter? Because they literally single-handedly invented the binge-watching revolution. They forever changed how television is consumed. By 2016, they'd achieved this incredible scale to fend off aggressive new competitors like Amazon and Hulu. We're talking 600 hours of new original content, armed with a staggering $6 billion content acquisition budget. And they were validating their whole strategy with prestigious awards, like the 14 Emmy nominations they pulled in just 2013 alone. They also continued their hardware dominance by deeply integrating into platforms like Comcast's X1, locking in millions of new subscribers, and making sure their service was absolutely everywhere. Okay, let's wrap this explainer up with a final thought to take away. Netflix killed the video store by being incredibly agile and totally willing to make their own core product obsolete just to chase the future. But in doing so, they also started a massive global streaming war. And in a market this cutthroat, with tech and media giants constantly knocking on the door, a single mistake could be deadly. So the real question